And welcome everybody to another edition of the GSMC Football Podcast brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. As always, I'm your host, Kenneth Gruenfelder, and it's great to have everybody here on this Monday, January 8th. We have a lot to talk about on the show today, but before I get into that, I just want to remind you guys, as always, as my dog starts barking for some reason, to tip or donate and get your comments recognized, make sure to go to the following link. That is streamelements.com/gsmcsportsnetwork./tip. Again, that really helps the show, makes the show more interactive between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. Again, that is streamelements.com/gsmcsportsnetwork./tip. And as always, it is displayed on the ticker on the bottom of the show segment down below. So, with that being said, let's get right into what we are going to talk about for today. So starting off the show, I'll talk about what happened with the teams in the AFC South. As you can see, for the title of the segment, the Texans ended up winning the AFC South. So I know on Friday I said, I gave my predictions, but I said things are definitely everything is not going to turn out the way, I'm saying it's going to. And that ended up being the case. I did have the Texans winning, but I didn't have them winning the division. But we'll get into that in a second. Then in the second part of the show, we'll talk about what happened in the NFC East. The Cowboys winning the NFC East. The Eagles losing to the Giants. So we're going to talk about the Eagles a lot in that segment because I don't know what's going on. I really don't with them. So that'll be the second part of the show. Then we're going to recap last night's game between the Dolphins and the Bills, and then we're going to look at the playoff matchups, as well as we're going to preview the national championship between Washington and Michigan. That is tonight, and then that'll be it for college football. So that's the rundown for the show today. Now let's get into the first topic, which is talking about the Texans winning the AFC South. So they obviously were one of the games that were played on Saturday. They played the Indianapolis Colts. They were the nightcapper. The Ravens and the Steelers played earlier in the day, and that was difference. Well, the difference is two teams were playing in the dome. The other teams were playing in a terrible weather on Saturday. So yeah, the Texans, they got the win 23-19 over the Colts, improving to 10-7 on the season. Colts dropped to 9-8 and got eliminated from the playoffs by losing that game. The loser of that game would be eliminated, and that's what ended up happening. So the game started with the Colts going 11 plays, 56 yards down the field. They kicked the field goal. And literally the first play of the Texans' drive, C.J. Stroud connected with Nico Collins for a 75-yard touchdown, and that put the Texans up 7-3. Then both teams exchanged punts the rest of the way in the first quarter. Then the Colts punted to start the second quarter. Texans punted. Colts punted again. Then the Texans got another touchdown, 8 plays, 57-yard drive. C.J. Stroud connected with Andrew Beck for a 1-yard touchdown. Colts kicked a field goal, and it was 14-6 at the half. Then the Texans punted to start the second half, and then the Colts went 4 plays, 87 yards, and that was the Jonathan Taylor 49-yard touchdown run. He had a monster game. And we'll talk about a play that he wasn't in on, towards the end of the game. And then the Colts got the 2-point conversion. Gardner Minshew connected with Mo Alley Cox for the 2-point conversion. So that tied the game. Then the Colts missed a field goal later in the game. Texans then kicked a field goal. Kaimi Fairbairn, he kicked a 51-yard field goal. So that put them up 17-14. Colts then tied the game. Matt Gay kicked a 35-yard field goal. And then the Texans got a touchdown in the fourth quarter to put them ahead. That was a Devin Singletary 3-yard touchdown run. And then the Colts, they were driving. It was a 4th and 1. Jonathan Taylor was not on the field for this. And Gardner Minshew threw a pass to Goodson, and he was not able to make the catch, Tyler Goodson. And they turned it over on downs. Texans took over. Actually, there was a safety, but to try to run out the clock, and that's why the score ended up being 23-19. But yeah, so the big controversy with that is, why was Jonathan Taylor not on the field for that play? I think Minshew has to make a better throw. That pass could have been caught, but Minshew definitely could have made a better throw on that. And yeah, and that would have that would have put the Colts ahead, because the Texans actually missed the extra point on that touchdown that Singletary scored, I believe. So that would have put them ahead if they make the extra point. Then the Texans would have had to go down the field and kick a field goal, and I feel like they probably would have done that. But yeah, it was just unfortunate, and Goodson was really emotional after the game, because we've seen plenty of times over the years, players making huge blunders in big moments. And in the age of social media, you're going to hear about it. And it's not right, because some people take it. Listen, I understand, like, if your team loses in that fashion, you're going to be frustrated. And just don't take it out directly on the player. You could do that privately. But, again, we live in the age of social media, so unfortunately people are going to voice their frustrations even directly to the player, because now you can direct message the certain players. And I don't know if Tyler Goodson has social media, but if he does, he's definitely, unfortunately for him, getting some messages, I would imagine, because that's just how messed up some people are. But for the Colts, I mean, listen, it's still a good season for them, despite the injuries that they suffered at the quarterback position. I give him a lot of credit, and Shane Steichen has his team headed in the right direction. You get Anthony Richardson back next year, have a nice draft, free agency. This team's going to be good. So it's just a tough way to lose. And then as for the Texans, I mean, listen, this team deserves to make the play. I mean, both teams deserve to make the playoffs. These teams were evenly matched, I thought. The difference is one team had C.J. Stroud. No offense to Gardner Minshew, but C.J. Stroud was the difference in this game. He played really well. He unlocked Nico Collins. I said that on Saturday. I mean, Nico Collins has been in the league for a couple of years now, but he had Davis Mills throwing him the ball and Tyrod Taylor. Now all of a sudden you draft C.J. Stroud, and Nico Collins looks like a pretty good receiver. So this team is going to be they're hosting a playoff game. This team could make a playoff run. Now they're going to be playing the Browns again, now with C.J. Stroud. So that's going to be one of the better playoff matchups this weekend. Even C.J. Stroud was emotional after the game. What a turnaround for the Texans. What a difference a year makes, really. What DeMeco Ryans has done taking over as head coach. They signed some veteran players in the offseason to go along with the young players that they have, and it's worked. It really has. So credit to them. I mean, both of these teams are heading in the right direction, and this is going to be a very competitive division for years to come. So credit to the Texans, and they'll be taking on the Browns next week. So now let's get into the Jags. So the Jags, if they won yesterday, they would have clinched the division. They would have been in. Texans would have made it as a wild card team. But that ended up not happening. Jags ended up losing the game 28-20. Trevor Lawrence, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, missed some throws. I mean, on that 4th down to pretty much end the game, I mean, he overthrew Evan Ingram. They got beat up in this game by Derrick Henry, who probably played his last game as a Titan. He had 19 carries for 153 yards and a touchdown. I mean, very disappointing end to their season. And they struggled. They struggled for a while. I mean, it really all goes back to that overtime loss to the Bengals when Trevor Lawrence got hurt. They ended up losing, what was it, 5 of their last 6 games. I mean, their only win was against the Panthers, who can't score. They didn't score again yesterday. It was not a good end to their season. And you wonder what's going to happen. Are there going to be changes? There's now questions are being raised about Trevor Lawrence. But I think it's because he was banged up. I mean, he had so many injuries, the concussion, when he hurt his, when he had the leg injury against the Bengals, or the ankle sprain, I think it was. He gets the concussion. There was the shoulder. I mean, he was dealing with a ton of injuries. The Jags had a ton of injuries too. Like I don't think Christian Kirk played in this game yesterday. He was injured for a large portion of the year. it's or at least the second half of the year. It just this team was 8-3 at one point, and they collapsed. They collapsed, and it's funny because it all goes back to it actually all goes back to the Steelers game, which is funny. What I saw on social media is because when the Jags like had the terrible towels and they were waving them around after they beat the Steelers in Pittsburgh 20-10, since then they had the bye week, got blown out by the 49ers, they won back-to-back divisional games, and then that was when the collapse started. Really started. But everybody likes to go back and point to, well, if you didn't, because now the Steelers are in the playoffs, which is just I can't even believe it. I can't even believe the Steelers are in. But credit to them. But for the Jags, I mean, they finished with the same record as they did last year, but this time they are on the outside looking in, which is disappointing because I did want to see Trevor Lawrence in the playoffs. But listen, they lost some close games towards the end, and they had their opportunities. There was also that deep throw that Lawrence had, to Ridley late in the game that just missed him. If you connect with him, that's a touchdown, and then you're trying to go for the 2-point conversion, I think. Or I think actually, would that have put them ahead? I can't remember, but that was a play that you should have connected on. They also did go for it on 4th and goal from the 1, and Lawrence tried to leap over the pile, and he ended up not getting it. So then the Titans took over. So yeah, they left some points out there. I'm trying to see, when was that late in the game? It was that deep throw to Ridley. Let's see. I'm trying to see if I can find it. Yeah, that was the 4th and goal. Yeah, I don't remember. I don't remember when it was in the game, but yeah, it's just they missed their opportunities. And they were up 10-7. I mean, Lawrence connected with Ridley for that deep touchdown, for that long touchdown. And you thought, okay, here we go. This is the Jags right here. And it just, Derrick Henry just took over that game. Trevor Lawrence had his turnovers. It just wasn't the Jaguars' day. And Texans now, nobody expected them to win the division, and they did. And there's that clip of Trevor Lawrence saying, talking about how he hopes the division is bad because, obviously he wants to win it every year. Well, this division is going to be pretty good. I don't know what the Titans are going to do, if they're going to let go of Vrabel. We've had some coaches be relieved of their duties. Arthur Smith getting fired, Ron Rivera getting fired. So the Falcons and the Commanders will be looking for new head coaches, which at least the Commanders we kind of figured. The Falcons, it was depending on how this weekend was going to go, but they ended up getting blown out by the Saints. It actually was, the game was close, and then the Saints kind of pulled away. Saints playing how they should have been playing all year, but they just could not find that consistency. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know what the Titans are going to do. They keep Vrabel. The Jags, same thing. Is Doug Peterson, is he on the hot seat? Are they gonna, run it back with him? Because the Jags did have some injuries, so I don't know. We'll see. But that was a collapse. So we'll see. We'll find out in the coming days what ends up happening. So with that, we're gonna take our first break of the show, and then when we come back, we'll talk about the NFC East. We'll recap the games. And, Cowboys winning the division, obviously. And, yeah, that's what we're going to do when we come back from our first break of the show. So with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.